All right, so I'm going to introduce our first speaker panel. And I had the pleasure of spending time with Stephanie yesterday. And I really want to thank you for coming here. You probably feel extremely outnumbered being the only supplier with a lot of us here. And it takes a lot of courage to come here and... Well, there's all sorts of people in the value chain. She's the client. You're the client. You have research suppliers and sample suppliers here. Thank you. And I'm not hungover. And so, Stephanie, I will read your bio if that's okay. She's currently the Associate Director of Brand Insights for the Specialty Division of Clorox, which includes Glad, Brita, Kingsford, Hidden Valley Ranch, Fresh Step, and Scoop Away. She's been with Clorox for 3 years, and her prior roles within the company have included Associate Director of Shopper Insights for the Specialty Division and Shopper Insights Manager for Kingsford Charcoal and Fresh Step Scoop Away Litter. Prior to joining Clorox, Stephanie worked for American Greetings, Marcus Thomas, and Royal Appliance. She has over 15 years of consumer and shopper insight research experience and has studied a variety of consumer groups and business categories. Stephanie holds an MBA from Myers University and studied abroad at the Academia Rogue in Tarragona, Spain. So thank you. Also, Frank Kelly of Lightspeed. I think we all know who you are, but thank you guys, and please step up.
So, well, before we really get started, we have a sort of an unorthodox approach to this. We were discussing, actually, with Stephanie's idea, that literally we started talking last night and 2 hours went by very quickly because there's a lot of input that we could get from even one person on how the client views our industry, and so to just help, and I certainly have a list of questions. I did do my work, but I was hoping to just get a couple of thoughts on which direction you want me to take on this discussion this morning. We'll have time for questions certainly at the end. I'll spend about 15 minutes of the time, getting questions from you all. But is there a particular emphasis that you want to understand, a particular insight you want to gain from the client perspective that you feel you're missing? Maybe you could just shout it out. So I don't know if we'll have time for the mics at this stage, but or you trust that I know the right questions to ask. Patrick.
I'd love to hear more about the opportunity and challenges that automation and speed of sampling afford the clients and the research on that end. Because we talk a lot about how technology is making things more efficient. The question is, what's the viewpoint on that? The opportunities and challenges of speed of execution on sampling.
Okay. Some other areas for emphasis in the discussion down here?
Yes, I'm curious how or if you are adjusting the samples that you request from these vendors given all the limitations we have with the available sample. How is that affecting what you're asking for in your research?
Okay.
I have a more basic question, which is how much do you care about sample?
A lot. I can answer that one right off the bat. A lot.
Okay.
I was going to add to that regarding the sample. How close are you to the sample? Because you're not working directly with the provider. So how familiar are you, and what are the things that you're most interested in?
Okay, well, I think that's a good start. What was this? Oh, okay. Stephanie.
Did you get an invigorating shower this morning as well?
I got sleep last night. I'm fresh and ready to go. A little bit unlike yesterday, I might add, when Bonnie started asking me questions. So, and yourself?
I had a very cold shower this morning.
Oh,
I don't know if anyone else did, but it was refreshing.
Yes, actually, mine was a bit on the chilly side as well. I thought that was a local favorite.
Yeah, I thought it was just you.
So yesterday, of course, we talked in quite a bit of length about device agnosticism and so forth. And the underlying issue was that across the industry, we haven't seen survey lengths decrease, at least from what I see, and I see quite a lot of surveys coming through. Our average of about 20 minutes a survey has held fast for at least the last 5 years and doesn't seem to be going down, despite some pretty targeted efforts in that direction. When I mentioned this to you yesterday, you mentioned that you didn't think that was as big an issue, that long surveys weren't necessarily the norm at Clorox. And could you maybe tell us how you've made that happen, or how you've avoided that industry challenge, shall we say?
And, you know, obviously, I am an N of one, so I can't represent all clients, and you're probably going to sit there and go, yeah, right, that doesn't happen. But at Clorox, we actually have a structure that's set up so we have a centers of excellence, so somebody who does research on research and will put mandates across all of the various research functions. And then my role is a brand insights lead, so I'm supposed to be a method expert for brand insights work. And so we follow the norms that the sample providers and the research supplier partners would say or suggest, don't go past this point, because the information that you're collecting at a 30-minute survey is useless. So the team that reports up through me, I'll see their survey links and we'll have a conversation, and it can sometimes get sporty, about let's talk about what objectives are absolute and which are nice to know. And that we work consistently to shorten survey lengths to be no more than 20 minutes. Now, the reality is a lot of surveys are going to exist where you need to do a lot of diagnostics, and one would be a segmentation. And I was told to head up that segmentation, and it ended up being 38 minutes long. And okay, well, I've negotiated everything. So we worked with the sample provider, the supplier partner I worked with the sample provider, and what we did was a 20-minute survey and then a 15-minute go-back survey to a subset of that sample. And that was our workaround to shorten the length and still accomplish the questions that we wanted to. So, I mean, we will accept a lot of compromises and unique solutions to ensure that you keep your sample entertained and or coming back to take more surveys. Just work with us.
Great. So you have a staff of people working for you, and when you think about how they spend their time on, say, for example, developing deep insights on your brands, analytical time versus, say, project management time, bidding and managing projects, and perhaps other time that they need to spend in various meetings and gaining the requirements from their clients. Could you tell us sort of how the time is split among those various functions, and perhaps how you wish that time was spent, if there were areas that you wish they were able to spend relatively less time on in the future?
Yeah, I definitely do not want them spending the time worrying about the sample composition and which methods of sampling are being conducted by the survey supplier partner that they are working with. My preference would be for them to be the intermediary between, here's the business objective, let's translate that into the right research questions that are going to be fed back, and the business will make decisions. The project management piece is the up for grabs, and that would be in terms of if we are told to do scrappy research versus we get to work with a full service research provider. For us, Scrappy means we take the analytics in-house. It doesn't mean that we are going to take the project management and sort of the survey development or the decision on where we're going to buy sample and which type of sample. I don't want the people who report to me to take on that function. That would put them over onto a supplier side from my perspective, if that makes sense.
Very well. And so then you presumably would envision using a mix of types of services from the research industry, some of which could be technology enabled and directly commissioned by your staff, potentially, so some kind of quick turn survey approach, and others might be a much more elaborate consultation with a research agency.
Yeah. Value proposition work, turf analysis, the industry sizing, segmentation. We're always going to work with a research supplier partner who's going to bring some expertise into the house and really sort of help us grapple with the most expedient way to answer our questions. When we are challenged with 2 ad executions or 2 package designs that we want to select between the 2 and have a pretty good sense of both would be acceptable to our target consumer, I think we could say we reasonably would take that and do a quick field and tab house, populate the survey ourselves, and work with that supplier partner to work with you guys to get sample. And we would take the results in-house, analyze them, and present. So we do have both.
Great. And in our discussions, you also mentioned that what's really changed over the last few years in your research is, and it may be particular to CPG, in that you have somewhat different demands than other service sectors where there's a lot of retail partners, for example, that you work with and provide insights to for category growth. But the question is, you mentioned that there's a growth in the demand for more tactical sort of research questions versus the ever-present, I assume, strategic research for brand that you need to do. And so is that where you see perhaps that growing need for fast turn, perhaps self-directed, self-serve type services?
Yeah. Lucky for us, it's actually additional questions that are coming up. So the strategic questions haven't gone away. They see the value in us, and we're still answering those. But I made the comment, or the I was being facetious, but it sometimes gets to this. It used to be, is it going to rain tomorrow? Yes or no? And then now it has turned into, is it going to rain tomorrow at 3 o'clock? Because I need to know that. So the specificity of the questions that we're getting, the tightness of the answer that we need to get to, it's still a tactical question, but that's kind of where we'll start to get a sense of aggression from us, like we need to know exactly here, so you need to beef up your sample or you need to do something. But those types of questions, thankfully, aren't the majority. They're still questions that we are handed off, though.
So does that mean that as a result you have to deal with potentially more suppliers than you had previously, or are you finding ways to work with the same number of suppliers in a broader range of ways?
So we like to work with strategic supplier partners that take the time to learn our business. And they usually are staffed with people who are adept at helping us really even rethink some of the business questions that we have and making the learnings bigger. That said, I'm responsible for 6 brands, $2.5 billion. We all have the same questions hitting at the exact same time. And you could be a rock star research supplier, but we will hit your bandwidth. And then it's going to start being the B team and the C team. And so we actually do spread out a lot of our strategic projects among multiple supplier partners, because we've realized, like, we've taken great people and we've broken them, because we're farming off quite a bit of that work and we're doing it at the exact same time. So that's really more the reason why we have a variety of supplier partners, because we have a tremendous amount of work that we're pumping out.
Continuing a bit on the speed theme, do you see the opportunities to deliver research faster? The things that the sample fieldwork area could do to try and, is that one of the things that's holding up your team in any way? And do you see it as one of the big issues? Because there's a lot of perception here that if we could only deliver things faster, then somehow we'd be doing a better job, but I'm not sure if that's a view you share.
You know that the terminology, I'm just going to say it, shit rolls downhill, right? So the reality is I have a business person who knows the plan, and they're factoring in 2 months that research is going to take. And when they want to shorten their plan, let's take it out of what I don't understand, which would be research, so I'm going to pull that out. And I, as a research supplier partner, am going to be sitting there with my 2-month block, and where can I pull out this? Because what I don't want to do is underservice the thought process in developing the questionnaire, and what I don't want to do is shortchange the analytics to find the right results. So who's going to be the piggy in the middle? And I'll do that. But the reality is those feel like they build up as they go from person to person, so the telephone game. I would stand in front of a result being delivered if it's not accurate. So that quality, in the end, it's garbage in, garbage out, and the most important thing is the respondent. And so I can't believe that if you can collect 1,000 working moms in 3 hours, that would be an accurate representative sample of working moms across America. So I don't want to take the short route on that and say that this is going to stand as the proxy for all working women. We're making multi-million-dollar and billion-dollar brand decisions on that. So that's not the place where I want us to take out time. I want us to do it correctly, because in the scheme of things, it's 3 days of fielding, 4 days of fielding. I'll take that.
So have you encountered quality issues with sample in the past? And if so, what sort of process do you have to ensure that that your results are the right results?
So, you have those moments where every researcher that works for a company, the reality is my only vested interest is in Clorox doing well. So if the data that I'm about to supply looks inaccurate, I will stop. And we'll stop everything until I'm sure it's right and go on. And I think one of the things that happens is a lot of times people are churning and going, and you're very close to the data and you're just looking to make sure, did I do the analytics right? And then you put it in front of your boss, that unfortunately happens to be me, and I'm removed from it, and I take one look and say, do you really think that 64% of purchases for Pine Sol are made by men? You want to check IRI and just see, does that look right? Starts the ball rolling, everything stops, and I think to myself, the gut checks, we're set up for that. We're set up for a system of checks and balances, and we do a lot of peer review, and that can sometimes get pretty sporty, but if there's a disconnect, really the first place we look at is primary research. We look at the sample composition of what we know to be fact, and then what's coming back. And if it in fact is changing, and all of a sudden men are buying it, well, that's just going to prompt a new study, and we'll figure out why men are buying it. But the reality is, it's something as simple as that starts it, and we have encountered that.
Okay. So, as far as the industry here, it's partly evidenced by this conference and in 18 months, 3 conferences. We've undergone some pretty significant changes over the last few years in that, the norm maybe a few years ago was panels and directly drawn samples. Today there's maybe a different norm. There's quite a range of different ways of supplying sample and routing sample and delivering sample. So it's been a pretty fundamental change and a profound change for this industry. But has it gone relatively unnoticed on the client side? Because we're not really sure. We've had a hard enough time as industry participants keeping up with these changes. And we wonder to what extent the clients are cognizant of those changes themselves and care about them even.
So we care. We have faith. We want to believe in you having a regulation amongst yourself to ensure that the respondents aren't professional respondents, that the respondents are accurate and a representative reflection of America, if that's what we're asking for, or any European country, if that's what we're then going to ask for. I would say that we are consistently looking to make sure that there is a pool of respondents that are available, and we realize that as these increase in tactical questions are coming on top of the strategic questions that we're asking more and more frequently to speak with respondents, which is taxing and always getting you guys to try to generate new respondents for us. But the reality is the various methods with which you're doing it, we probably want to stay out of that. And then the real reason that we're going to go and want to look under that hood is when we're seeing stuff that intuitively doesn't make sense. When we are not understanding until after the fact that you send out half of the sample as a mobile. And we're like, well, I didn't see a test link for a mobile. So let me see that now. And if we are, after the fact, not happy about that, we're going to have some sporty discussions. So I think that transparency about what's happening isn't going to start us investigating. There's faith on our part. But finding out things that have gone wrong after the fact is probably when we would start questioning and having concerns.
On the mobile point, we spend an awful lot of time talking about mobile. Obviously, changing the platform on which we collect our data is a fundamental change to our industry. But at the same time, we're still, I think, many of us are still waiting for the day when mobile provides some incremental business opportunities for the industry. Have you done any or many 100% mobile types of research or projects in the recent past?
We've definitely contemplated it, and the reason that we are doing it is after we've done a tremendous, immense study and segmented our audience, and I'm going to keep saying this, but Kingsford, as you might know, is purchased by men, and younger men who happen to be African American and Hispanic. And when you look at a lot of the current panels, they don't have that demographic. They don't have that respondent that we really want to talk to and understand. And so we have invested in doing mobile-only surveys, knowing that that segment is easier to reach there, and knowing that we're going to have to greatly pare back the list of questions to the most important questions, and we're going to do it at the point of decide. And mobile seemed like the perfect technology for that. And that leapfrogs us dramatically. We were not capable of getting a hold of them a year ago, and today we can get feedback from them very quickly and succinctly answer the questions we need.
Right. So another big development we should at least touch on, I think, is the idea of big data, and a client such as yours presumably has sort of a data strategy, if you will, as to how the data needs to come together, the various data streams. And so the question is, how does that change the skill set necessary? Because first of all, who's responsible for bringing in those various data streams and making sense of that synthesis of insights? which is so essential in a category management function that you have to provide for many of your clients?
Yeah, we actually would, so it's a 50-50. Half the time we might be in-house saying, you know what, you just give us the primary research piece and we'll come together as an Algonquin roundtable with my analytic insights, the shopper insights, the digital insights, brand insights. We all put our pieces of data together on the table, and we will walk out of here with a synthesized story that we are all comfortable with, and that's the point of view of GI, or Global Insights. But there are a lot of times where we are actually looking for the support of a strategic supplier partner who has the capability of the social listening and the cleaning, the understanding of what the online digital behavior, and then we want to fold in the primary research that's being conducted. We will always have our analytic insights that's going to fold in as well, but if our analytic insights can speak directly with the research partner, we're okay with that approach as well. So we're like at a sort of a fork in the road. We're trying to figure out, is the cost of that provider going to be the right value proposition for Clorox, or do we just pull everything in-house and start staffing it? And I can tell you a lot of companies are saying it might be worth it to just bring the headcount up, the ability level up, and we'll take it all in-house.
Is there one research service that you wish you had that you don't really have today? I was thinking social listening.
Yeah. So we do have...
we discussed it.
Yeah, I was like, Dawn Dodge. I was like, hey, hi, how are you doing? The social listening side of it is really interesting us, because my leadership, just to be transparent, and he's the first one to go, yeah, he will write stuff. When I first got handed the assignment for redevelop and redefine what brand health tracking will be for Clorox enterprise-wide, the idea was it better come back social listening. I think the day has arrived where we can stop asking respondents what they think and just start watching them and listening to their social chatter. And I can tell you, as sample providers, pay attention, be aware, because we are consistently and actively looking to see where can we stop bothering these consumers who are inundated all the time. Where can we just watch their behavior? And people are like, they're popping in the little dart, I can see where you go, I can see what you buy, I can see almost everything about you. Well, does it get to a point where it's such an excellent ethnographic experiment that I don't need to ask you anymore? I can tell you what you're going to need because I've seen your behavior. So I don't think we're there yet, obviously, but that's becoming more and more a capability that we're seeking to have in-house and understand.
So it's potentially less asking and more monitoring, and
Yeah.
less asking might ultimately relate
To sample.
to lower, shorter survey times, perhaps.
Yeah.
Hopefully not less surveys.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it was kind of cute. There was a conversation, and I just want to be really transparent about this, where it was like the 20-minute survey, and you're saying you want it down to 5 minutes, and that would make less money, and that's a little bit counterintuitive to what would make it work. And I'm thinking in my mind, like, dude, really, we'll be asking 4 5-minute surveys, so you still get your money. It's really the whole idea of we still have an abundance of questions that we want to ask. We're just looking to work with you and help us understand what's the most conducive way to getting to respondents and getting the right information. So that's, really the thing we're trying to accomplish.
okay, so a big growth in behavioral observation research
Yeah.
in the near future. Can we just, in a minute we'll get to questions. We got just almost 60 minutes left, but I'll ask one last question before we get to the floor. And that's just, could you help us understand how what the role of communities are in the research that you do? Do you see them having a greater role in the future? There's been quite a bit of growth already. Do you see them as a way to enfranchise larger other groups within the company that perhaps don't otherwise consume research? Or what is the role that you see for them?
Oh, we love them. So once we've done a strategic piece of work and we've decided who that consumer target is, the idea of having a pool of those people to go to and to have conversations with that would be accessible to us to really do the upstream ideation and innovation ideas with, and knowing that that can translate into acceptance of the idea at a rate that is meaningful for us to decide to move forward with it, is something that you don't even have a problem getting a C-level exec to walk in and see the results of it, or have interactions with, or watching as we're having the conversations with them. It's I think, the way of doing it so that we are minimizing the sending out a pool of questions that a lot of our competitors are on your panels just looking for our, you know.
Is that a real
ideas.
concern?
We do it, they do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's like the 1 in a million shot that you're going to get
Is that what you're lying about the market research industry?
Yes.
No one does that.
I know.
Okay, well, with that, then let's ask some questions from the floor. Hopefully I covered some of the stuff that was brought up earlier, but if you want to add some more, ask those a little bit more deeper, that's fine as well. Anybody with a question for Stephanie? Some topic area I didn't cover? Do you have a microphone over here? Stand up, get some exercise.
Thanks, Stephanie. That was terrific, and thank you, Frank. I just wanted to get a little more information. You talked about the importance of behavioral data, and that's such a big term and something that I think we all are very familiar with. Can you just describe for you at Clorox what you're thinking in terms of what the types of behavioral data would be that you're looking for?
Yeah. So there's a sort of two schools of thought. We treat it as, we want to treat it as a leading edge indicator. So when we're hearing social chatter, a good example was there was a new product launch and it was just getting horrible conversation. And it would have been, if that had been the only piece of information, it would have said, don't put this product out, it will fail. And we kept seeing conflicting data through purchase behavior. And so it was a really strong case to be made for how do you appropriately use social listening as a way of understanding the size of an issue, and does this just represent a vocal minority? And so we haven't figured it out yet, and yet we will continue to look at it, monitor it, and it's social chatter and behavioral data from our perspective would be sales and ratings and reviews from like Amazon. So we're watching everything.
Great, thank you.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah,
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Frank. Question about the traditional market research study. Maybe it's a more strategic study. How do you evaluate and make a choice on which supplier you want to work with?
Good question. So there really is a price value checklist. So we are somewhat standardized in, are they familiar with the method? Have they done it before? Do they have bandwidth? Do they have the right partners that they're willing to put on the project for us? Because we're not the biggest fish in the sea. If they also have Coke as their client, might not answer my calls. But the reality is, too, that we then start taking a look at what's your data collection, what's your sampling. We start going a little bit deeper into those areas when it's between 2 or 3 big supplier partners. So we use that as criteria. Like the less obvious ways that we would make decisions. We're not emotion-based decision makers at all. By definition, we're researchers. But the reality is it can sometimes get to this group is working on more leading-edge technology. They are capable of taking our point-of-sale data and our social listening data and including it into the analysis. Well, then I'm going to pick that supplier partner. The traditional side, it feels like it's capability, capability, capability are all somewhat equal. So it's the additional things that we start taking a look at. If I answer that.
I was just wondering, with the behavioral data, would it be interesting to overlay that to your sample responses? I.e., this person would more likely be an Amazon reviewer, this person posts X number of times on Facebook.
Holy Grail, yes. That's what we are finding, like not all people who post a comment are equal in terms of how we would care about their comment. There are certain people who are like thought leaders or certain people who are vocal advocates for or against something, and so they're adjusted accordingly. The conversation with Dawn that I found so awesome was that if they were to be able to monitor click-through behavior, know that you saw an ad, then do the IPS and see that you're in a retail store actively buying the product, then I can see this entire consumer journey unfold. And that to me is exactly what I want to understand and know, so that I can improve their experience at every step along the path to purchase.
And, I mean, we're at sample count. I'm just wondering how worried you are about the representative nature of that respondent. Right? Extremely. So, because if you could do that, you'd probably be, that person would probably be atypical.
So we're constantly looking to assess and understand, are they or are they not atypical? So, you know, you could have probably made that argument that they're not typical a few years ago, but where you're seeing like almost every demographic go in and buy online, you're seeing people adopting smartphone technology through, you know, all of the various ages, all of the education levels, and quite interestingly, the socioeconomic levels as well. So they've stopped becoming less rep, but I do believe that it's not the only place that you should be getting your information. And I don't believe that they are going to represent everyone, but is it significant enough that we need to know them?
Hi, Stephanie. It's Patrick.
Hi.
I love when people say Holy Grail comments, so I'm just going to try to dig in a little deeper what that actually meant. So I thought the question was, if you have a survey of X thousands of individuals, and you also had, along with those 1,000 individuals, their social identifiers, say Facebook plus Twitter plus all the data feed that flows in, that sounded like a good thing. And then also if there were point of sale, like cookies from digital point of sale tied into that as well, so you could see which respondents actually have and have not purchased, or saw an ad, exactly. So I'm just trying to understand what the Holy Grailness was, because you lit up and I want to know more.
Yeah, we answer 3 critical business questions. I mean, when it comes down to it, it'd be 3 questions and then like 78 subset questions that help answer the 3. And it's what products are we going to make to grow the category? Which consumers are going to be the consumers that will help us grow the category? And then how do I have to talk to them, or how should I be talking to them in order for them to see the value of my particular brand, and making a switch in behavior, right? So if I can see the information that I provide to the organization saying, build this product, say it in this way, and tell them to buy it here. And if I can watch that journey unfold and find out that the person that or the product I told them to develop is being bought by the person that I said would buy it at the time that I told them to buy it, then I've achieved success. And then we can look for other opportunities and start driving those as well. I mean, we really have to go through a retailer in order to get product placed. So we can't just go in with a story of, it'll grow Clorox brand. They don't care. They want to grow the category. And so our understanding has to be much more broad than just our brand. It has to be the category growth story. And within that, we still have to have a way to understand and differentiate our product from our competitors. So, but understanding that life cycle can help us understand where we broke down. So what's the first place that I need to shore up? And then from there, we just keep refining and making adjustments. And every product has a life cycle, so you have to start that process again. Did that answer your question?
It does. I'm just interested in, I guess most panels today, or sample sources today, don't have, as far as I'm aware, so please correct me again, but they don't have the social identifiers mapped in at point of registration. So most people are registering on a reg path that doesn't include social. Some do. So the question is, how valuable is the social identifier and the data stream off of social to the overall research process? And if that was to, for example, we could start making it standard, right? Or just something we do all the time. Some people may be, Nate's looking at me like maybe he's already doing it, but is that the look you just gave me?
No comment.
No comment. All right. So, so the question is, right now, the assumption is that that data is not available. But we could change the assumption that almost all projects, the majority of respondents have Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn already identified. There's a data stream on the back end of that, along with all the survey research along with it.
Can I just add one thing before you answer? Like, there's folks that, just adding before you answer, so apologies for that. But there have been conversations with folks that have, like I've heard, oh, we've done that. We've attached the social graph. We've tested it, and nobody needs it. So there is some kind of perception out there that although it sounds nice and it's nice to add it, and it sounds like it would add a lot of value, there's a little bit of a perception out there, well, it ain't going to go anywhere. Nobody really wants it.
We haven't cracked the nut. That's the problem is, and we will continue to try, which is, can we get the social listening or the social chatter to equate to sales or an understanding of the impact for our brand health, short-term and long-term. So if we can match those two together, then we can start using that as the proxy and change the whole game. And I can guarantee you Facebook is looking at it, Google's looking at it, Apple's looking at it. We're all looking at it. And so right now, we're just building the tracks. I mean, if we haven't got it figured out, we're waiting for the day when we do and we have the information and we're collecting it, and some brilliant young gun is going to come in and go, figured it out. And so we feel like we're in a location, we're in the bubble, We sit right beside Silicon Valley, and we probably are, we're strategic partners with Google. We definitely try to make sure that we stay as close to understanding that as possible. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, and actually, I think it's time to give Stephanie a rest. Thank you very much.